Hi there. My name is Sharon Tinberg and I am owner of Rags to Riches, a support center for residential cleaning services. I started this company in 2008 after I left my residential cleaning service, which I started in 1988. And it was called the Upstairs Maid. When unemployment was 5.3%, which is relatively low, but not a bad point at which to start a business. Cleaners were hard to find, yes, but certainly not like you're facing today and I also faced at other times in my service. What was hard to find was clients. But once you found them, they were very easy to keep because cleaners listened to what their managers had to say and the instructions they were given and what the expectation level was to keep their job. In that arena, things actually got better from an employee perspective. In 1992, unemployment went as high as 7.4%. There were a few highs and lows in between there, but that was an all-time high. At which time, again, it was very hard to find clients, but cleaning services were becoming more accepted in the 90s, and they certainly were in the late 80s. It was like an overnight revolution when the boom of the 90s happened. And it hit, the technology age hit, especially in Austin, Texas, and things just got stronger and stronger. And there were more and more two-income families where the wives were in their early 30s, managing 30 engineers at Motorola. Clearly, they did not clean their own homes. It was a great time in Austin, Texas. Of course, that led to much lower unemployment rates until, ironically, in the year 2000, we had the very same unemployment rate as the United States had last year in 2018, which was 3.9%. Yes, it was tough to find employees and even tougher in a high-tech city. I found myself in the same situation you all are in today. So I want to say one thing, you didn't invent low unemployment rates. As a matter of fact, many of you probably weren't even in high school when I was trying to figure out how to get cleaners on board and keep them. At this point in time, we were doing about 1.1 million. I thought I was safe. I would never lose my company. We did about 60 jobs, cleaned about 60 homes per day. We were totally residential. Remember, the billing rate back then was about $27.50 an hour, maybe $26.50. We always bid by the job. I had about 40 employees. The minimum wage back then was $5.15 an hour, so it was low. They equate that to $6.73 in today's inflation rate. I started my employees at $7 an hour as a partner, $8 an hour as a supervisor, and gave them a company card to take home and pick up their partners and go to work with every day. So recruiting wasn't difficult for me until Michael Dell grew so rapidly of Dell Computers that he just could not keep up with his manufacturing need, his bodies that he needed. And he hired temporary agencies to hire as many people they could, starting at $9 an hour, guaranteeing them full benefits in 90 days. And I lost 10 employees in 5 days. Every day there was a different, I had 2 people teams back then. Every day there was a different car parked in the driveway for 5 days. So it was a nightmare, to say the least. I went out to lunch with my banker on maybe Thursday. No, it must have been dinner because I didn't take lunches. And she told me to hire people who couldn't speak English. I had a competitor at the time. I really liked him. He was a new franchise owner, and he was there for about 4 years. He was growing much faster than I was, and he was using non-English speaking people. She said to me, pretty abruptly, well, do you just want to lose your business? Is that what you think? And I immediately went back to my office, went through the very large stack of Hispanic people who had walked in my door, filled out an application, and of course an English application, so half of them were half filled out, they didn't understand what they were writing. I went through that and looked for the people with the most experience and did the best I could with my high school Spanish and brought them in and started them on Monday. What I did was I took the 10 teams I had, I turned them into 3-people teams, I threw Hispanic in the back of every car, had them do the bathrooms, had the other 2 do kitchens and dusting, and had the supervisor check the homes very carefully, which they were used to doing. It pieced it together. My cleaners weren't happy going to 3-people teams. They weren't happy because they were at that time kind of commissioned. The clients weren't happy seeing 3 people in their homes, much less one who couldn't speak a word of English, but my banker was right. It was better than closing the doors. Then about 35 days later, one of these Hispanics just could not catch on. I mean, it just was not going to work, and I had to terminate them. And I couldn't even tell them why. And suddenly I realized that I was exploiting my employees, and I could not live with myself. And that's when I made some major changes in my life and in my company. When I had no way to communicate to people who already had no self-esteem why they were losing a job cleaning toilets, and just had basically shoved them out the door, I realized that I needed somebody to interface, somebody who could understand both languages. I had a couple people of the 10 that I hired that were a little bit bilingual, but I couldn't get my messages still across to the people that I was working with who could speak absolutely no English. So, this message that I have for you, the rest of this message, is for the 54% of you who have people working for you who cannot speak a word of English, and you can't speak a word of their language. For owners who find themselves in the same situation I found myself in the year 2000, you can and should use non-English speaking people, but you need to not exploit those people. You need to figure out a way to make both of your lives more successful if you're going to make this work for you and make it to the next million. I immediately did 4 things. Number 1, I ran an ad for bilingual working supervisors. I took my non-English speaking employees, I put them with a very bilingual supervisor. Paid good money for them, it was worth every dollar. Then I took the people who couldn't speak any Spanish and rearranged them into 3-people teams, because that was a very wise move if you are a large company. We cleaned 60 jobs a day, in the end 90. We had 5 homes within 2 city blocks, a lot, so I could keep the same team. There was no driving time. 3-people teams only works if there's little driving time. I put the Spanish-speaking teams into homes or mostly homes where we had keys to the homes. They were very good cleaners, so the client didn't realize a different team was in there in most instances, because the other thing I had done very well in the 10 years before this happened was documented very well. My work orders were very accurate. A different person could do that job, and it would be pretty unaware, the client would be pretty unaware of that change. And if they were aware of it, they wouldn't care because everything looked the same anyway. I enrolled in Austin Community College in Spanish classes. I took 16 credits in a year and a half, got 3 A's and a B. Best thing I ever did in my life, I swear it, or one of the best things. And because I was going back to college and had all this stuff going on in my life and getting anywhere between 3 and 4 hours of sleep a night, I required my Spanish employees who couldn't speak a word of English to learn 2 words a week. It was a policy in our company. You had to do it. You didn't have a choice. So I would say out of this nightmare came 2 of the best decisions of the 3 best decisions I ever made in my life. 1, going to 3-people teams. 2, going back to college to learn what I was where my shortfall was, to improve that, to learn Spanish. I am now probably 70% bilingual. Back then more like 40. I needed my bilingual people, but I knew whether or not they were saying to the employee what I wanted them to be saying to the employee. There's a cultural difference there too. Hispanics find it very difficult to tell other Hispanics they've made a mistake. But in America they need to be told, and we need to be aware of, as managers, whether or not they are getting the message we are attempting to send. And of course, third was making the core training videos, and I'm glad I did them in English and Spanish. All in all, going back to school, and I know everyone cannot do that, but if you can, if you are large enough to fit this into your schedule and learn Spanish, it will accomplish two things for you. It will automatically have your Hispanic people looking at you as a professional and someone who is mentoring them and someone they want to follow. It will turn your employees into followers, and followers don't quit their jobs. Teaching them English, forcing them to learn it, took that following one step further, and it turned those employees into lifetime followers. It changed their lives. They could now go to their parent-teacher conferences without their children interpreting for them. The respect they gained from their children and from the teachers was, of course, transported over to me because I'm the one who forced them to learn the English. They knew that I cared about them, and that earned their respect. And that's what it's all about. Hispanic employees who cannot understand English need to know some way that you care as much about them as you care about the money they're going to make for you. They cannot feel that you are exploiting them in any way, and you cannot exploit them in any way, or they will not respect you. And again, that's where it all begins. I submit to you that it may be difficult to sell the concept that you care about an employee when you ask them to sign a piece of paper with their signature that they can't understand, they cannot read. I have to ask you, how would you feel if someone asked you to sign a piece of paper that you didn't understand? My thought would be you are probably strong enough to refuse to do it, but these people are easily intimidated. And if you want them to respect you, you will help them to not feel intimidated in your environment. You will help them to feel safe. And asking them to sign a piece of paper that they can read and understand will automatically make them feel safe. Because probably in America, nobody has ever done that for them before. With this in mind, I've put together 3 Spanish modules. Some are mandatory forms, some are support materials. But they are all done in Spanish. As I was putting this together, I realized, well, this is not going to do you any good because you'll still have a communication gap. This time you won't understand what they're reading and signing. So you need the forms in both English and Spanish. My forms, my videos, my seminars, they're all absolute clones of one another. They're done in English, scripted, so the script can be turned into a Spanish script and everyone will hear exactly the same thing. I have everything on my website in English and in Spanish, but today and tomorrow and Thursday, I am going to sell everything in English and Spanish for the same price. That's how much it means to me that you get these forms, these things out to your employees in both English and Spanish. That you treat your Spanish people with the respect they deserve, which is asking them to read and write things in their own language until you teach them our language. The 3 modules cover 3 different areas. The first one covers hiring and orientation, things like a job application in Spanish and English, signing paperwork, job descriptions, things that get them comfortable with the onboarding things that you need when you bring an employee on board. Module 2 is the cleaning module. Those are things like the core DVDs in both English and Spanish, the processes that you use to clean in your company that need to be delivered in both English and Spanish if you want consistent cleanings in your company, regardless of what language they speak. And the third module is what I call a retention module, and that is a module with seminars. They are done in both English and Spanish. Again, things like building a winning team for your supervisors. It helps for supervisors to hear seminars in their own language, and most of your bilingual supervisors will first be Spanish speaking and second English speaking. So I play them for them in their own language so that they can conceptually get the vision of what we're talking about. But I also have them for the partners, things like Think Win-Win, Begin with the End in Mind. These are presented in both Spanish and English. The gal who did them for me was working on her master's at Marquette University in Spanish, and she said she was so moved by this because things like this are not presented to employees in Mexico. She said it would make a true difference in their life and the way they feel about their jobs. I would give some thought to showing these to both your English and Spanish employees. It engages them, it gets them thinking about things, develops them as human beings, as employees. In like respect, these seminars also change your American families' lives. I had a client in California who had a supervisor who was a nightmare when she first hired her. She just kept showing the videos at her meetings, and the gal started listening to more and more of them and changed. In 8 months, she came into the owner's office and asked if she could share those videos with her husband and her son. That's why I know about it, because the owner asked me if it was okay. We automatically take for granted as owners that people are getting developed, they're learning habits, they're realizing how they can change their lives. They're not, because nobody taught them this. It has to start somewhere. You can change everyone's lives at this level by developing their lives, and these seminars help you to do that. I encourage you to take a look at these packages and move your respect level to a new level, not only with your non-English speaking employees, but also with your English speaking employees. By engaging them in your company, by developing them, by teaching them things that they haven't learned before. Go to my website, successmadeeasy.com, and put in the search key 3 modules. It will automatically bring up 3 modules in Spanish and English. At the bottom of the paragraph, it will say Read More. Click on Read More, and it will take you to the page where you can read everything that's involved in each one of the modules and see the amazing specials I'm running on them, because I truly, truly want you folks who have non-English speaking employees to bring your company to a new level. I do not believe you can hit the next stage with Spanish employees until you have documentation, support, learning materials, and retention materials in their language in place. Because it's going to take you a couple of years to teach those words to those employees. But you put in place the teaching 2 words a week. My clients all now do 5 words a week. And I guarantee you, you will have a self-sustaining company. Within 2 years, all of your people will be speaking English because they're engaged in your company. They want to become more engaged. You're engaged in teaching them English, but also teaching them what they need to know in Spanish so they're not held back while they're trying to grow. Take some time, look at this. I encourage you to take your company to the next level by investing a small amount of money in a large change in your company. If you have any questions, please feel free to call me at 512-964-9750. Thanks for your time. Have a great week, and hopefully I'll see you next time.